We're now going to move on to our final speakers of the first block, Dr. Marie-Chantal Fortin and Paul Cormier. And right after this, there will be a 10-minute Q&A session with all of the speakers from the second block of the morning. Dr. Marie-Chantal Fortin is a transplant nephrologist at the University of Montreal Health Centre, also known as CHUM, a researcher at the CHUM Research Centre in Montreal. Dr. Fortin is the CDTRP Theme 1 academic co-lead, and her research mainly focuses on transplantation ethics and patient engagement. Paul Cormier, who is joining her for this talk, is a kidney transplant recipient from Montreal, Quebec, who participates as a patient partner in various research projects. We'd like to invite you now to give us your 20-minute presentation, people.
Thank you, Lindsay, for this nice introduction. So I'm very glad to be here today. And I would like to thank the organizing committee for inviting me and Paul to share our best practices. As you'll see, I think I will repeat what was said maybe differently earlier, but because the challenges are the same. So I will share with you my perspective, and in the middle of my presentation, I will share the mic with Paul, and then I'll come back. So let's go. So as you know, in the last 2 decades, there was a paradigm shift. So, you know, before, patients were viewed as research subject. They were participants to research, but they were not patient partners. And now, you know, it's, I think it's fantastic that we have included patient to partner with us. Well, it's my researcher perspective. I really enjoy to partner with patient because they bring me new perspective, different views, and so on. So I think this is a great thing. So why it's important to partner with patient, family, and donor in research? Well, first of all, you have a right to be part of this. And I just want to mention that in my presentation, I apologize, probably I will say every time patient, but for me, the word patient it's very inclusive. So it's include family members, donors, caregivers. So, but for the sake of the presentation and the time, I'll use patient, but don't be angry at me. So, well, you have a right to be part of the research since, you know, it's research that is looking on disease and conditions that you have. You have a word to say, and you have expertise and experiential knowledge. Also, there's a democratic argument. We are all taxpayers, and research in Canada is mostly publicly funded. So as a taxpayer, you have a word to say on what kind of research should be conducted. And of course, as mentioned earlier, involving patient, family, and donor, it improved the relevance of research. I think Sandra just mentioned earlier how we are now interested about the issue of quality of life, mental health in transplantation, and it's because of patient partners who help us to define research priorities. It also could facilitate participant recruitment and knowledge transfer. It provides unanticipated research topic, and we acknowledge patients' expertise. So, as mentioned earlier, you can be involved in different part of the research. Today, I will focus on the development of the grant proposal, but, you know, and you can be consulted, you can be actively involved. So there's different roles that you can take. So in the grant proposal, what are your roles? Well, it's to help to ensure that the research proposed and the methods are acceptable for the patients and are ethical. It could also inform us where the patients could be involved in the research. What is important to measure? So traditionally in transplantation, we were obsessed by patient and graft survival. But you have learned us that it's not only to survive, but to live well for the transplantation, and it forced us to look at different outcomes. So it's because of patient partnership. Also, writing the lay summary, it's a requirement for the many of the the funding agency, but this is really important, the lay summary, because it's with the lay summary that we'll be able to present our research to the public and to other patients. So it's, and even for other researchers, when I'm on a grant committee and it's basic science, I'm looking at the lay summary, because otherwise I don't understand the scientific summary. You, as mentioned by Manuel, you can become co-applicant, but there's different role, and you can help us to develop and select data collection instrument. That being said, that's fantastic to involve you, but there's many challenges, and I don't have, you know, I don't have any answers. First of all, the deadlines, it was mentioned earlier, but as you know, researcher, we are always at the last minute. Also, the grants are announced we have a short delay to apply. So it could be hard. I think as researcher, when we involve patient, we have to not be at the last minute, because the patient cannot review 10 pages in 48 hours. It's not possible. So, but the deadlines, the rhetoric and the form of the grant proposal, it could be, you know, even for us, the researchers, sometimes it's really hard. So for someone unfamiliar, I think, well, if you want to involve your patient, maybe it's good to highlight the section that the patient has to read. The section on statistical tests, maybe that's not a good section, although the patient has expertise. If he has expertise in statistics, great, but otherwise, maybe highlight what's important and where you want comment. Also, one of the challenges is the low success rate for funding of grant proposal. Well, as researcher, we are used, you know, at the CIHR, it's about between 15 and 20% rate of success. So it means that every time we apply, we have well, when we apply 6 times, maybe the 6 will be funded. So we're used to that. But for patients who are new in the research process, it could be hard to live that, you know, he was involved and finally it's not funded. Also, the time elapsed between the grant submissions and the results. So just as an example, Pearl was involved in my New Frontier grant. I submitted in September and then I forgot it because we don't have any fund. We cannot start. There's nothing to do. And we got the results in April. And then I wrote to Paul, yes, we got the result. And so it's hard to keep patient engaged during that time. The risk of tokenism, we have mentioned it before. It's great now. All the funding agency ask for patient partnership and patient engagement strategy. But again, if there is no relationship between, there's a risk that, you know, the patient will be instrumentalized for the research. And thanks, Manuel, for your great presentation on ResearchNet and the common CV. But I'm not sure, even for us researchers, that we are used to use those platforms, it's not user friendly, and sometimes I'm very angry to those platforms. So for patients, it could be hard to do the first time you do your common CV and manual mention, it's not easy. So that's really challenges. I just want to mention my experience with Paul. I know, well, Paul just make me realize that I didn't start at the beginning of our relationship, but you know, I've met Paul as a kidney transplant recipient, but I'm a transplant nephrologist, but I'm not taking care of Paul. And I think I forgot this because we have different relationship when we are physician and patient. It's different than when we are researcher and patient partners. So Paul participates to many of our creative writing workshop during the activities that we got with the chair McConnell, Université de Montréal sur les récits du don et de vie. And, you know, since he participates as a participant, in the last year, he started to co-lead with professional writers, creative writing workshop with other patients. And so it's how I know Paul as a participant, a patient partner. And now, well, in last September, I applied for a New Frontier grant, which is in continuity with what we were doing with my literature scholars. This is a grant that has for objectives to develop an art-based intervention to help transplant patients to face grief and survivorships and so on. And since it was in continuity, it's why Paul became a patient partner in this grant. So we just received the fund. We're going to start the research. So right now I will become quiet and pass the mic to Paul. Paul, do you have any slide? Do you want me to?
No, I'll just use my voice for today. If you, Marie-Chantal, could you just take the slide off for now? Thank you. Good morning, everyone. As Chantal said, I participated in the, it's more than creative writing, it's creation workshop. So I did a couple of videos. We had a kind of sound lab. I had a comic strip. There's a variety of, I wrote a play. So there's a variety of genres that we approached. A bit of background, maybe. I've been in touch with the healthcare system since 1960. Today is the 63rd anniversary of my first hospital stay. So I see it evolve. In some aspects, not so much. In terms of and it's basically the human side that has evolved, but still has a lot of things to do. So I used to serve as a demonstration object, a teaching aid for my rheumatologist at the time. So as a perfect example. I was a kind of a passive actor in the learning of new doctors. I'm especially pleased to participate as a patient partner in the workshops, but in the new project as well. I heard someone say earlier is giving back. There's that, but there's the very selfish interest of it's a lot of fun to do. And I was writing when I was 20 and life made it that I ended up writing memos for the federal government, which is not the same, doesn't have the same flavor. But rediscovering the art of writing and the finding out through the exercise with other people who are organ recipients, and that's very, very important, because everyone found out that somewhere the scars that are left don't hide all the wounds that we have. It branches out, and people have gone on very profound journeys doing that exercise. So I'll stop there for now. So any questions? But I'm very glad to be part of the team.
So thank you, Paul. And I just start again to share my screen. Sorry for the end of the presentation. I know I have 5 minutes left, but it's almost completed. So, okay, so the winning condition, nothing new, spending times and resources involving patients as early as possible, developing a meaningful relationship between researchers and patients, training, mutual respect. And also it's important to have clear expectations on both sides, what you expect as a researcher of the involvement of your patient and what also your patient can want to be involved. So it's important to have a discussion to be sure that you are on the same page. So in conclusion, it's important to involve as early as possible patient in the research development, and it's mean grant proposal. And you need to develop an authentic engagement where the patient is a true partner in research, could be a co-investigator, a co-developer of research, a co-decision maker and lead initiatives. And there are many major benefits to involve the patient voice, but there are many challenges that need to be addressed if we want to continue to involve patients in research. So thank you for your attention. I'll be glad to answer the question, and I hope that I'm okay for the time.